Welcome to another exciting episode of the Future CFO Podcast, where we dive into leadership, career management, and the latest trends shaping the future of finance. This podcast is brought to you by FutureCFO.info, your go-to platform for practical finance and CPD courses. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share this episode with your network.
Today, on the Future CFO Podcast, we welcome Mr. Modou Camara, the head of the technical department at the Gambia Financial Reporting Oversight Board. Mr. Camara is a chartered accountant with deep experience in finance, auditing, and corporate governance across multiple sectors. An IFAC Young Leader Collective founding member, Modou is very passionate about transparency, ethics in finance. Welcome, Mr. Modou Camara.
Thank you, Mr. Sawale. I'm pleased to be here. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Right. It's a pleasure for myself and our viewers and audience to have you on this platform. You have a very incredible journey, starting with Audit and all the way today as the head of technical department of Gambia Financial Reporting Oversight Board, which we commonly call FROB. So I think it would be nice to understand what were some of those decisions you have made that sort of shape your career path.
Thank you, Mr. Sawane, and greetings to you and your viewers. And again, thank you for having me. It's really an honor and privilege, to be interviewed by someone I hold in high regard and esteem. So for those who may not know, I was actually tutored by Mr. Sawane in my early days as a student accountant, studying the technician papers, foundation papers, NMATC it used to be called. Regarding my career journey in qualification, for me, ACCA played a crucial role in my career development with the openness, willingness, and appetite to learn, develop, and challenge myself to contribute to my employer, to the community, and to the country and profession at large. So it helps fundamentally in terms of psychology to prepare one to be a complete finance professional in preparation towards value creation and preservation and meeting basically the dynamic challenges of our time, and also to be forward-looking critical thinkers. So in terms of how I started, once I completed my technician papers, I started as an intern in an audit firm. That's how I started my career journey. And I was then headhunted to join a travel agency, actually recommended by MDI, which is the Management Development Institute. And there I finished most of my ACCA papers. And by then I was doing three things mainly. I was studying my professional qualification papers, working, and then lecturing part-time. And that really helped me a lot, partly. And moving on, I also got, again, recommended as a senior accountant at Lasting Solutions. I just spent briefly before I traveled to complete my ACCA papers in the UK. And in the UK, my whole outlook changed. And of course, I would always recommend to students, if they do have a chance, not just to study, but also to work, if circumstance accord it. Because it's very, very important. For me, it's like you're peddling two sides of the CV. On one hand, you have the qualification side, but on the other hand, you also have the experience side, which is very important, not just to have a one-sided CV, but you can progress both sides. It makes you a bit more fine-tuned professional once you are done.
Right.
And so in the UK, again, my whole outlook, perspective change, and basically one's expectations and of standards and approach. So even when I was working, but still it was more or less like an added value, so to speak. So I was involved there in the construction industry as an officer, and there basically there was a lot of engagement with customers, and that also helped boost my interpersonal skills to some extent, in that you would have that relationship. My journey was likely self-funded, but much later, my parents were very key in my career progression, and my auntie Nafi, which basically they supported me in the final push towards completion of my career journey. And to be honest, I wouldn't be able to have done that without their support. So when I decided to return, in fact, before returning, I had an interview, a couple of interviews actually, remotely before coming, and then landed my job and as a senior auditor at DT Associates, which is an independent correspondent firm of Deloitte, as a senior auditor. When I had the opportunity to join FROB, which is the Gambia Financial Reporting Oversight Board, especially with the work that they do, I had to oblige to the opportunity to come and serve in this professional capacity as I am doing right now. But yeah, thank you, Mr. Sawan. I hope so.
Thank you, Mr. Camara. I think a journey which I would say many of us had, and we will encourage from the key points of your introduction. One has to do with, if people can, you have the opportunity is to work and study. It helps your understanding of what you are even learning. I remember when I was studying, because I was working certain concepts in accounting and finance, I was able to understand them faster when I talked to senior colleagues in the office. That was very helpful. And of course, the support network you spoke about, Auntie Nafi and the others, are also very essential in one's journey. So coming back to FROB, which you spoke about, because the work they do, that sort of entice you to work in FROB. We know FROB is not new, but I would say it only recently started becoming more active when the likes of yourself, Suleiman and Mustafa and the others joined FROB. For some people still, they may not understand what is FROB. Maybe in a summary, can you give us what is FROB about, and also what is this technical department about?
Thank you, Mr. Solan. And actually, I'm pleased to be here because now you're giving us a free advertisement about FROB, because I've been on I've been on TV, I've been on radio, and we had social media handles, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, where we're trying to push, basically enlighten, educate, and inform stakeholders about what actually we do. So FROB was established by an act of parliament, which is the Financial Reporting Act 2013. Section 48 established FROB. However, the board was inaugurated in 2019 and management retired in 2022, mid-2022 actually. And I joined somewhere down the line in mid-June 2023. And part of my tasks was also to help push the agenda of FROB, basically to enlighten, educate, and inform stakeholders about what exactly we do. So our mandate is actually set out in Section 49 of the Financial Reporting Act, which is mainly, we have the oversight responsibility of public interest entities, so their financial reporting and corporate governance of public interest entities under our purview. We have oversight responsibility over the auditing profession in the country, and we have oversight responsibility over JICA, which is Section 49B. Basically, which just to paraphrase, we are to ensure JICA activities are in line or aligned to the standards and various requirements of IFAC, which is the International Federation of Accountants, which I'm also recently appointed as a founding member of the IFAC Young Leader Collective, which I'm one out of the 23 jurisdictions. So Gambia is now represented on IFAC Young Leader Collective. But that's basically our mandate, our role as FROB. What we are tasked to be doing. So in terms of the department, most of the functions of FROB would be shouldered by this very important department, which is the technical department. And mainly it will be channeled through, we have a board technical committee, which I am secretary to the board technical committee. And I'm not sure if you're aware, we've also recently issued rules, we could call them regulations, draft, which for them to review and comment, because you do need these drafts to basically issue clear guidelines and expectations, especially public interest entities and public interest entity professional, and also PIE auditors, what we expect of them in terms of carrying out their responsibility on the financial reporting, corporate governance, and audit as well. But that's basically in a nutshell. So our role is basically to be carrying out the M&E, which is monitoring and evaluation activities of FROB. There's a very important body. It's good that I just make this very clear, and I've been saying it in our stakeholder engagements, called the Standards Committee. It's separate from FROB, and the Standards Committee responsibility includes adopting and issuing international financial reporting standards, auditing standards, ISQM, which is the International Standards on Quality Management, and the development and issuance of corporate governance standards. So for us, our role would now come in once these standards are issued to be doing monitoring and evaluation of those standards, whether the public interest entities are complying with those issued standards and whether the auditors are in compliance with those issued standards, and by extension, the PIE professionals, because of course, these institutions, public interest entities, are run by professionals that will be involved in the financial reporting process. So mainly two things: the Standards Committee issued standards and the rules that are issued by FROB. These are the two things we will be doing M&E. Well, thank you. And thank you for giving this platform to us also to raise awareness about the work, important work that FROB does.
Thank you. FROB is very important because from the point or the descriptions you've made about FROB, it is a critical element of our corporate governance. Corporate governance is something that I'm excited to always participate in its discussion, because from my knowledge, I know it's the foundation for any country, for any organization. Anytime people come together to form an organization, what is the key thing is trust. Without trust, we won't do transactions among ourselves. And therefore, you need to have some rules, some regulations, some guidance, some best practices that will support how do we build this trust. So I see FROB is going to play a very key role in the corporate governance arena, if you may call it, of the Gambia. And talking about that, I know we learn a bit about corporate governance in school, in accounting and finance, but I think it will be important to emphasize, why is it that finance and accounting professionals should build interest in the corporate governance of institutions, especially our public interest entities, as you call them, your PIEs?
Thank you. And you've raised a very important topic or point, which is corporate governance. So businesses exist to serve a purpose, right? And in most businesses, that is reflected on their mission statement. So they will have a mission statement, whether it be in the private sector or public sector. When I say businesses, I am trying to include in all the public sector.
Right.
This purpose are normally reflected in their mission statements and guided by their value statements. That's a promise that they're saying in terms of how they would go about conducting the business of the entity. And corporate governance is the foundation this is built upon, business practices. So simply put, it's the way businesses are run and managed. And in particular, I just want to focus on the public interest entities, especially or particularly because of their size and nature. So it affects the lives and livelihoods of many. And basically, they are of interest to us as regulators for public interest entities. They're of interest particularly to the providers of capital. So, and there's reliance being placed on them by their service users and the interconnectivity between them and their value chain. Okay, so there's always that reliance, and always sometimes even in government contracts. So if there are bids to be out, depending on how your business conducts itself, there's that trust or added advantage to give you contracts because the way you're running the affairs of your business matters a lot. Businesses are the engines of a thriving economy, and for us to promote sustained economic growth and in enhancing the lives and livelihoods of its residents. So just to also exemplify, so I've been saying the good stuff, but to exemplify, sometimes you could look at corporate governance. It evolved over time, and some of the principles or stricter measures being introduced is because something had happened in the past. That meant that, look, perhaps the structures at the time were not adequate to be dealing with those issues that emerge. And you could look at corporate governance scandals, basically, which meant that strong measures has been put in place. So you could look at, for example, Enron in 2001. And you could look at Qualcomm in 2002, and Parmalat in Italy in 2003. So you could go on making mentions or references of corporate governance scandals. So these ones I'm mentioning, they are even way older, but there are also more recent emergence of corporate governance failures. If you look at Carillion, for example, in the UK, I did my RAP, which is Research and Analysis Project, BSc project on Carillion, which went into, in the UK, went into liquidation. And it basically mostly tied into corporate governance failing. And that was in 2018, Carillion. So the negative effects is that it has severe impacts on the economy, on society, capital erosion, tax evasion, public funds misuse. And these are pertinent issues. And for me, in terms of where the young professional comes in, it would be a rewarding career path, something very interesting for them to look at specializing post their ACCA studies. But they could look at corporate governance as a subject that one would want to specialize on. Just to try and add a few more other bits, I would just say one more point just to conclude, is leadership. Leadership is an important or integral part of corporate governance, and it helps in value creation, and importantly, in shaping culture, in shaping corporate culture. The leadership is very, very important because it will look at what behaviors are rewarded or encouraged, but also what behaviors are also punished. And that would help in shaping culture. But that's where I would basically leave it as. Thank you very much for this very important question.
Thank you very much, Modou. You touch on a number of points that can be expanded into various other discussions. Your last being culture actually is the foundation for governance. We know when governance is there to build a trust. And you give example of companies that went into bankrupt due to some fraud, some accounting issues. But beyond that, even back in the Gambia, I've made 2 or 3 senior officers in the banking industry who told me we don't have trust in the financial statements we receive. This is something, sometimes it worries you because you have people preparing those accounts and you have auditors signing on those accounts, or so-called auditors, because not all of them are actually registered in the case of Gambia with JIGA. But I think this is where the support of FROB will be very essential, as in people supporting FROB, government supporting FROB, professionals supporting FROB, because when FROB is there, I can have a trust, in a particular account and I can invest, because accounting is just one thing, but it plays a key role. People trust to invest. And part of this is culture. The transparency is part of organizational culture, but it's also part of our way of life. So I think this is a whole different conversation we can talk about the culture of business practice in the country, and how can FROB or we, the professionals, can play a leading role in supporting that, because without them, things will be difficult for us to achieve what we want as a country. And talking about that, I think if you talk about awareness of FROB, let people, stakeholders know what FROB does. And we talked about corporate governance. We talks about how people can specialize in those areas. So I put all of this in continuous learning, because you can't learn everything in a class. We have a group of young students in the university. Let's say today in the University of the Gambia or the American University, we have in the Gambia people studying ACCA. They may not study enough everything in the school, but continuous learning becomes a foundation. And I believe by my own judgment, some people, when they get those qualifications, they sit, I now have my master's. I have my first degree. I don't have to bother much. For you, why do you think continuous learning is important for professionals of all age?
I like how the question flowed in nicely when you're now talking about continuous learning, professional development. Very, very, very important. So one can even be technical. You can be technically minded, but you also need to learn the soft skills. And with all honesty, if you're just learning in your career journey, it's unlikely you would have acquired those soft skills. The only time, perhaps, maybe if you've involved in lecturing / studying and working, you would tend to learn this interpersonal skills and other soft skills, which are necessary prerequisites, so to speak, for you even to deliver professionally and give a diligent service. And so it meant that that's one. But secondly, also things change. As we're speaking, there are new accounting standards being issued. You have IFRS S1, IFRS S2 being issued, and this discourse around sustainability and sustainability reporting. So it is that when you're professional and you want to do your job diligently and add value, it meant that you're also tasked to try to keep up to date so that you can give proficient advice. And that is based on recent developments, but also based on facts and trends. Just to add also, in terms of continuous learning or development, it's also an ethical requirement. There's an ethical dimension to it. So you are, by the ISBA, which is International Ethical Standards Board, you're also obliged by the ISBA code, which is also adopted for the PAOs, which is called Professional Competence and Due Care, to remain up to date. This is a professional requirement upon us as professional accountants, that we must keep up to date with trends and developments to be able to deliver diligent service. So there's that importance. And of course, people have passions and they will be driven. For example, yourself, self-driven will go above and beyond to try and acquire new skills. And I normally follow your comments and podcasts, which you said rightly, personal development is personal responsibility. So these things resonates with me. And then, of course, we all have a role to play. There's also a role to be played by employers. For example, on the issue of sustainability reporting, on the issue of new IFRS standards being issued. You have IFRS 18, IFRS 19. IFRS 18 is looking at replacing IAS 1. So this would affect a whole spectrum of entities. So there would be need for investments for when you have budget sessions to now try to include in your budget reviews this capacity development trainings that you need to be training staff to keep up to date with recent trends And they're not waiting for a particular company or waiting for a particular jurisdiction. Things are moving because, in fact, the truth is there are even faster developments that are happening, such as AI, for example, that are happening. So it means we really being challenged recently, and we have a higher stake, basically, to try and keep up to date. But thank you, Mrs. Allen.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think my favorite summary from there is they are not waiting for a particular country or jurisdiction. Things are moving. Now, AI is moving, new standards are coming, and those countries, those individuals who learn to understand, to work with these tools or are up to date with trending matters are able to get maybe better promotion, or they're able to get better opportunities. They're able to serve their companies and their countries. And I think I very much agree with you. We have to continue having continuous learning because it's also a matter of ethics. We have to deliver
Exactly.
value to our clients. Even if you are working for a company, in this case, the company is your client, you have to deliver value to them. Imagine a IT professional who is into managing securities does not know the latest security threats. Imagine a lawyer who is serving a company does not know the new laws that are in the country. So it's the same thing for as finance professional that is important we develop ourselves. And moving to your recent appointment as a IFAC young leader, for me, which I see it as another journey or opportunity for you to learn, since you're going to be networking with people all over the world. But maybe what is this program about, and what does it mean for you as an individual, but for Gambia also as a nation, having our own on the founding young leaders of IFAC collective?
No, thank you, Mrs. Sawan. I am really honored to be a founding member of the IFAC Young Leader Collective. And I would, before I delve in, I would like to really send my thanks and appreciation to the PAFA CEO. PAFA is the Pan Africa Federation of Accountants, ALTA, and then in creating an environment for growth, basically. And so the IFAC Young Leader Collective provides an opportunity for young finance professionals such as me, and also aspiring accountants, basically the opportunity to promote and contribute at the global stage. So I am one of the young IFAC young leader from the Young Leader Collective, from 23 jurisdictions from various continents. I think from Africa, it's only 4 of us, Gambia included in the continent. And the focus is basically on 5 key areas. Sustainability, which is number 1, actually, current trend, talking about sustainability and sustainability reporting. Then you have public finance management, which is also an area of interest to me. Combating corruption, talent development and retention, and artificial intelligence. So this very 5 key focus areas that we are looking at. So the initiative in itself, for me, is truly commendable and progressive, because what IFAC really did, it's looking at it from the lenses of younger or upcoming finance professionals. So, which I really support the initiative, and we as accounting professionals, we have a higher responsibility in that. Most of us, well, most entities have finance professionals. And these issues, talking about sustainability reporting, we have, as a profession, as an accounting profession, we have a key role to play. And what we're doing, we're leading the initiative when it comes to environmental reporting aspects. Because really, you can't improve what you don't measure. So it needs to start these discussions and also disclosures around GHG, which is greenhouse gas emissions. We need to start these conversations and be disclosing it. And the issue around sustainability more so is it's a global issue. And this global issue requires a global response.
Yep.
Even if you bring it down to our level, if you have a particular country following protocol, a particular company following protocol in terms of disclosing their environmental footprint and activities relating to the environment, but you have other companies that are not doing it, or other jurisdictions that are not doing it, it's like you're taking 5 steps forward, maybe 3 steps backwards. So it really needs that collective push, collective effort, and also raising awareness. So in the point of awareness, we've sent letters to Ministry of Education, a courtesy call letter, linked to, of course, this sustainability reporting. We've sent courtesy call letters to Ministry of Environment. We've sent courtesy call letters to NEA, which is the National Environment Agency. We've sent courtesy call letters to, and the UNDP, which is the United Nations Development Program representative, to have this discussion so that there would be a concerted effort, because we should be working together in really pushing the sustainability agenda in this country as well. But thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I like the IFAC agenda point. I don't know how they picked Gambia, but I think this is a very good opportunity because fundamentally those 5 points are all very critical when you looked at Gambia as a nation, what we need to work upon. Sustainability is an opportunity for the Gambia. We know that there were some global standard or targets that were set. I think 2 years ago, Gambia was probably the only country in the world that was on the track. Sometimes when I sit and think about it, I say, how are we taking advantage of this? Is there opportunities? Because when you understand sustainability beyond reporting, are there opportunities we can structure financial products that we can take advantage of this because they are low cost funding. But if you don't create awareness, you train these bodies you spoke about, whether it's the Minister of Education, whether it's the NEA, where they can be sort of empowered to line and development, to create structures, to create policy framework that enable us to tap into those low costs. Imagine in terms of funding our power problem. We all know how our power supply is in the country today. We don't have to talk about that, but it's a big opportunity on that. I mean, on that note, one of the things we do here, when we have a guest, we ask them a question. And our last guest is a strong, solid lady, Ramatullah Nyang. She is also a finance professional. I think your paths have either crossed in the Deloitte. She was in Deloitte then, and today she works in the UK and also served as an executive coach. So she dropped a question which we will ask you. And her question was, in terms of flexible working arrangement, how can Gambia or how can Africa prepare itself in order for us to adopt to a flexible working arrangement? And to give a bit of background, one of the reasons why she asks this, the next generation, commonly called Gen Z, that are about to enter into the workforce, they need to demand this. And if you don't have a solution, can we as a country find ourselves where we have labor sitting in the Gambia, but they're not working for Gambia and we don't have quality labor? So how do we prepare ourselves for flexible working arrangement?
Thank you. I think it's a very interesting contribution. I follow her on LinkedIn and the podcast she does as well. And I really, because I have flexible work, I've enjoyed it, and I've experienced how it could really help. So both the employees and the employer, so we can create a win-win situation. So it is my view that, especially for us that have experienced it, such as yourself and Madam Yang, and there will be others like us. So we need to really be raising awareness about the potential benefits and opportunities that this presents itself, because talent now is not limited in a particular jurisdiction. And as you put it, and you put it rightly, which is to say there's a risk that you might have young professionals that are based here, but working for companies abroad. And then basically that's a loss of talent. And if you could even remember, I want to tie it back to IFAC's, one of the 5 points was talent development and
Right.
retention.
Mhm.
So the idea of flexible working would help us in retaining talent. Why do you have to have people spending an hour commuting to work and having and spend another hour commuting from work back to their house? This is something that we could really look at and rethink. And also in terms of environment, footprint. Because if I own a car and I drive to work, someone else owns a car and drives to work. So we could also look at it from an environmental perspective, that you're contributing to the environmental footprint, that we could look at it and rethink it differently. I also want to look at digital transformation, because flexible working arrangement needs to be rooted in digital transformation drive. And there are loads of benefits tied into this digital transformation. Because, for example, if you look at it, it frees up admin time and storage from having to deal with physical papers or documents that would be submitted to you. So we really need to look at the drive for digital transformation and saving on printing consumables, which is even more environmentally friendly, because you could review documents digitally, you could approve or otherwise digitally, and this can be done. Another one I want to talk about is the cultural shift. What I mean by cultural shift is it's not about the input, it should be about the output. And we unfortunately have a tendency to check whether how many hours or whether this guy is physically present. You know, that has to we have to move away from that. So we all have deliverables. Is the is the staff really delivering on those deliverables? He does not have to be sitting at a particular area from 8 to 5 or 9 to 5. You know, the focus should really be on output, you know, and that would help bring the flexibility working hours, as long as they can push on these deliverables. That should be our focus. And to refer back to your point again, I have a younger brother who is in the Gambia, but also has engagement outside and is working remotely. So he can do that. And that's a danger we really need to rethink, because as you put in Gen Z, we're coming up with this risk that, look, people, countries and companies, they operate across jurisdiction, across borders, and they'll be looking for talents to be manning this position. Just to add on other bits, is for example, cybersecurity and cybersecurity education, because some of the employers, you know, when you talk about this, they will be telling you issues around trying to retain certain elements in the analog or old system kind of way, and not wanting to digitalize. So there needs to be some sort of education also on cybersecurity and cyber to basically promote why we can still maintain the integrity of data and still go digital and have that flexible working arrangements. And for us, referring back my mind to COVID days back when I was in the UK, you would see COVID helped really push the flexibility working agenda. Because of the pandemic, people are really forced to, if perhaps a company was dragging its feet, now it has more reason to go digital. And the companies that were really at the forefront of flexible working or going digital, they were advantaged. So there are advantages into promoting this flexible working hours. And the final note or point would be on policy reforms, because you can't really push flexible working hours without looking at policy reforms. What do I mean by this is in the issue of storage and document acceptability. What documents are being accepted? So we should look at accepting digital forms as also acceptable documents. And linked to that also, we're talking about public finance management. It helps. I can be remote and be renewing, for example, putting passport applications online, and I should be able to track where the progress or do submit all the documents. So it comes to acceptability of documents. But I would close with that. I like Madam Yang's question. I think there are loads of benefits with
Yeah,
flexible working.
it's it's very fundamental and something smiling, but sometimes also worries because you gave a clear example of your brother who is currently working remotely. When I looked at that, very happy for him, great thing. But as a country, we lost a one talent. And there could be 100 of them in 4 to 5
Yeah.
years' time. You could have another 1,000 people in a country who are working for other companies outside, and this will be brilliant young people. And what we will end up saying, we don't have enough employees in the country, but we have enough people. So we must create that policy change you spoke about. We must create that awareness. And of course, cybersecurity becomes very key. If organizations are going into remote working, you must invest in the right system to secure your system. And I also laugh about the issue of paperwork. This is something we have to reduce. It's not environmentally friendly, but also it does not allow certain flexibility. And that's why people are always want you to be in the office. When you have
Yeah.
everything on paper, there are countries today, you apply for a visa, there is no paper at all. You enter all the way into their country, they give you a barcode, they scan. There are countries today, you even enter, they don't even stamp your passport. They are going digital and they have all the information about you. Even in the office, this is a big opportunity. There are problems, but I see them as opportunity.
Opportunities,
If we can
exactly.
reform these things in the country from government all the way to private sector to minimize the use of paper, it creates the opportunity for us to even have a very good audit trail. Because one thing I observe, it's easy to audit a system, what happened in the system, than to audit what happened on the paper. Because if I ask some paper, somebody will say, I don't know. But most good system always have an audit trail. Who did what, who changed what, who approved what. But today, go and ask some information. In many organizations, both private and public, you won't see the information you needed. Again, it's an opportunity that our colleagues and friends in the IT world and the governance world can take an advantage of. Now, my next question is about the future of finance. We spoke about a number of things here has to do with the past and the present. And of course, some of the conversations we did, they are going to affect the businesses in the future. But what are your views, are some of the things that are going to influence the future of finance?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's a very good question. And for me, number one, I would say sustainability and sustainability reporting. It's here to stay. I think that's why partly IFAC is looking at Young Finance, a leader collective, because you can look at it from our lenses, because this is something that will continue to be relevant in our time. But also, secondly, is the use of artificial intelligence, AI. We really need to see how to embrace and organize ourselves in accommodating the use of AI. We could look at it from an opportunity perspective, and it could really reshape how we work. For example, instead of working 5 days, we could think of working 3 days, because again, it's not just about the input, it's about output. And really, AI could help complement or supplement a lot of what that we do. And it could basically help improve our standard of living. And then basically something that, again, in the future, it would be more prominent. It would have a more prominent use. Data analytics as well, I believe, would have relevance into the future. If you look at universities now, they're offering courses or master's programs in data analytics, because there's that recognition that there's an increasing trend and need for the use of data analytics. You could look at Amazon, for example. If your viewers, if some of them would have used Amazon. So if you look at an item for a particular time, maybe a week or so, it would then try to resuggest similar item. So there's that intelligence, there's that analysis of data, things that you looked at. And from human activity, there are loads of things that we do that really, data analytics could help organization in predicting customer behavior, and it would help reshape our value offering to our customers to be able to better meet the needs of our customers. And I just want to add IT and the use of IT skills. My days, ACCA papers like the level 2 and onwards, the professional levels as well, they were all paper-based. But now you could look at it, currently the ACCA program have now gone computer-based. What that means is, in addition to having the technical skills, a student A would have an advantage who can type faster, can navigate through Windows faster compared to someone who perhaps do not have the same set of skills. And it will go into you will go with that into real world practice. So the moment you have those skills, you can navigate, you could use AI, you could use other softwares that could help analyze data quicker, you would get more insight. So that would play a prominent role. But that's where I would leave it just as a final word of advice, is just to be proactive in learning and have a can-do attitude as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Camara. I think the point you've mentioned on the future of finance being influenced by the sustainability is already here and is going to continue expanding. Yeah. And AI is also here, is everywhere in our houses, in our companies, and it's going to continue. And I like the idea that you recommend for people to learn to understand these applications for their use. I mean, I remember in 2020, when it was COVID, one of the things I did was to go and study Python with data science, not because I want to be a data scientist, but I want to understand how does these people think, why did they sort of support or promote these ideas of data science. And exactly the examples you gave were one of the case studies we did about how do we predict customers' demand with Python programming language. According to a recent report by the World Economic Forum, it says that about 27 million jobs could be impacted in 2027, 2028. And of that, it includes jobs like accounting clerks, secretarial, many other administrative jobs are going to be impacted. But of course, people can reskill. You can reskill. If you're a cashier, you can learn to be an accountant. You're an accountant, you can learn to be a salesperson, you can learn to be a CFO, a tax manager, and the like. I think before we come to the conclusion, maybe I will first ask you, what question would you have that we can ask our next guest, whom we do not know yet, but when we have that guest, we can say, Mr. Camara, the head of technical department at FROB, has this question.
Yeah, for me, my question would be, how do we embed work-life balance in a work environment to improve productivity? That would be my question.
That's a very powerful question, and I'm not surprised coming from accountants, because we are very well known. We don't have a work-life balance, month-end closing, and now we are coming to auditing. So most people are going to start sleeping in the office. So I think it's a very interesting question. So once again, Mr. Camara, thank you very much for being here. But before we close, I wanted to give any closing thoughts to our viewers and our audience, more especially the young people, those going to school or those who are just starting their career in finance or in any business-related program.
Thank you. I would say find a mentor, which is very, very important. Find a mentor that would help you, who will help guide you, because the idea is what you're experiencing today is it's likely that you have senior professionals who've already experienced that, have gone through certain channels, and that would help them, guide them basically. And you look at it from a resource perspective, this is a resource perspective, that they can assist you in achieving similar results even faster or more in an expedient manner. But also, don't always be demanding. Try to also offer help or helping hand. Because for you, it's personal development, as you would normally put it. It's personal development for you because you're offering help, and they could really give you tasks that can help you develop yourself. And I think this is really a good opportunity for one to follow. PER, just as a closing thought, don't leave your PER as last minute. I know, of course, normally in your journey to be a qualified accountant, we're always busy and focused on the exams itself. But I would encourage aspiring accountants to be looking at the PR requirements, even if you don't complete them, but at least look at them so that you know what they are, and it would help guide you in your career choices. Because if you're looking for a particular employment, or you're faced with a choice, you could look at the PER requirements and see what particular job role really suits this or those particular requirements. So it could be informed. You could make your informed choices. But thank you very much for having me, and thank you for the platform to talk about FROB, my role, and what exactly that we do. It's really appreciated, Mr. Sawane.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Camara. It's really a pleasure having you here. Indeed, we are happy to welcome you back another time. Thank you once again.
This podcast is brought to you by FutureCFO.info, your go-to platform for practical finance and CPD courses. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share this episode with your network.